Hello everyone, this is the 5th Epical Revelation Fellowship. I'm Reverend Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to study paper 55, The Spheres of Light and Life, and that starts on page 621.1 in the Urantia book. And for y'all at home that listen to our videos, we've been 2 weeks trying to get this started and we've had technical difficulties, so hopefully we'll get through it tonight. I do want to mention one thing I mentioned last time when we started, and that is I will not go over every single entity that they mention in this paper because it would just take too long. And if you click on the links, let me forward here a little bit. There we go. If you'll click on any of these links, it'll take you to the index, and you can look up an explanation of who these beings are right there on the index. So I wanted to mention that. So let's get started. I didn't say a prayer. Rodney, would you like to say a quick prayer for us? Get us started.
What are we doing?
I was going to get Rodney to pray, but he seemed
Okay.
to...
Roger, your mic is breaking up. And,
We can't hear everything you say.
yeah,
Okay.
I didn't even hear you calling.
I've got a perfect connection. Tim, mute your mic. I think it's
Tell me if this is
I
going to
think
work.
it's a static. Now can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah.
Very
So Tim, when you're not talking, you're going to have to mute your mic.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch so we won't have any problems tonight.
Okay.
So just let me go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So Rodney, go ahead and say us a prayer, and we'll get started.
Heavenly Father, we're thankful for your great love and mercy. We're thankful for our study group, for this time that we have, that we can come together and study this 5th Revelation. We're thankful for Roger and Diane's contribution toward this study group. We pray for wisdom and insight, and for our minds to be open and our hearts to be open as we devote this time to you, Heavenly Father. In all things your will be done. In the name of your Son, Michael. Amen.
Amen. All right. Let's get started. Diane, would you start us out tonight on the first paragraph there?
Okay. The spheres of light and life. The age of light and life is the final evolutionary attainment of a world of time and space. From the early times of primitive man, such an inhabited world has passed through the successive planetary ages, the pre- and post-planetary prince ages, the post-Adamic age, the post-magisterial sun age, and the post-bestowal sun age. And then is such a world made ready for the culminating evolutionary attainment, the subtle status of light and life, by the ministry of the successive planetary missions of the Trinity Teacher Sons, with their ever-advancing revelations of divine truth and cosmic wisdom. In these endeavors, the Teacher Sons enjoy the assistance of the brilliant evening stars always, and the Melchizedek sometimes, in establishing the final planetary age.
Okay, we're talking about the age of light and life, and it reads off the different ages in order in this first paragraph. Okay, and we have gone through the 3 of them. Well, I think 3 of them. Yeah, the planetary prince age, the Adamic age, and the post-bestowal sun age. But we have not gone through a magisterial sun age. Okay, we're out of order on this planet because of the appearance of Jesus on this planet. He is the sovereign of our local universe. So because he decided to do his final bestowal on this planet, it threw us off schedule. So that means we'll probably, our next sun that we'll have from paradise will be a magisterial sun. And then after that, we'll have some Trinity Teacher Sons, and that will bring in the age of light and life, right? And to assist them, there will be the brilliant evening stars, and they're created after Gabriel. They're the second order of ministering spirits that are created. So,
Hey Roger, I had a question.
yeah.
Can you explain to me what the post-Havona age is and why it's not in this section?
Okay, because that is not really a age associated with the period of light and life. The post-Havona age they're talking about is part of our ascension plan. Okay, so, and that will go through when we go through the ascension plan after the major sector in our seventh super universe. Our next step is to go to Havona, and that's what they're talking about there.
Can you recall what paper that's in, the post-Havona age?
I really cannot, but I'm sure it's probably in the index. If you go to the index and just look up post-Havona age, it should be in that.
Okay, thank
I
you.
believe. Okay. Let's see. Oh, a little thicker is not working on that one, is it? Let's try this one. All right. Millie, would you take the next one?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember to turn my microphone on. This era of light and life, inaugurated by the teacher sons at the conclusion of their final planetary mission, continues indefinitely on the inhabited worlds. Each advancing stage of settled status may be segregated by the judicial actions of the magisterial sons into a succession of dispensations, but all of such judicial actions are purely technical, in no way modifying the course of planetary events.
Okay, so the era of light and life normally starts after the final mission of the planetary of the teacher sons, and there is several missions of the material sons, right? And it goes on to tell us about the judicial actions of the material sons. No, excuse me, I need to squirt a cat here. He's going to drive us crazy all night. Sorry. He just scratches and scratches and scratches at the box. Okay, so the judicial actions of the magisterial sons happens at the end of dispensations, or about every 1,000 years or so. They'll have the judicial actions, and basically they decide who goes on to the mansion worlds, and this is on a mass resurrection. In other words, every 1,000 years they awaken the sleeping survivors and those who qualify to go on to the mansion worlds, and that's what the judicial action is with the
Hey Roger, and these individuals that are sleeping
yes,
till another new age in life, the teacher sons are the ones who basically decide?
they decide whether they qualify to go on. Now remember, only the Ancients of Days can make a final decision about eternal life. So this judicial action they take, they certify these people that they are qualified to go on to the mansion worlds. If they do not certify them, then they have to go through judgment of the Ancients of Days regardless. Because they are the only ones that can decide if someone does not have eternal life. So
there's really no standing in front of the Ancient of Days to receive judgment.
No.
It's actually before.
that's right, and it's all done through reflectivity too, and it's your guardian angels that takes on your case when that happens. You're not conscious when this happens if you don't qualify to make it. So
the moment the pilot light goes out, a decision is going to be made instantly involving the teacher sons, the Ancients of Days, and your seraphic guardian.
That's right.
And then when we speak about the teacher sons, we're also talking about those other individuals who have been sleeping for the past, let's say, 100 years.
Yeah.
And they're going to be
1,000
judged.
years, up to 1,000 years, or even longer. Yeah.
And it's only the teacher sons and the Ancient of Days that make that decision, or just
No,
the
it's
teams by themselves?
it's the magisterial sons and the Ancients of Days, not the teacher sons. The teacher sons don't have anything to do with this decision. Only the magisterial sons.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Tim, I believe you're up next.
Only those planets which attain existence in the main circuits
Oops,
of the
sorry.
super universe are assured of continued survival. But as far as we know, these worlds settled in light and life are destined to go on throughout the eternal ages of future time.
Okay, what they're talking about here is that if a planet does not eventually fall into line and go through the process of light and life, that these planets are not guaranteed a continued existence. It's only planets that fall in line with the scheme and the plan of the master universe that will fall into these circuits. Now, the circuits they're talking about are the paradise circuits, and that includes the Father's personality circuit, the Spirit circuit, the circuit of paradise for matter, and that sort of thing. So, in this case, we are really within those circuits to start out with, but we're like on a trial basis right now. Until we reach light and life, we're not guaranteed to stay within those circuits. And since we're in quarantine, some of the communication of those circuits are cut off to us, right? And that will remain the same until the quarantine's lifted, and we don't know when that's going to be. Okay, so the circuits they're talking about is the paradise circuits, and there's 3 of those. There's also the local universe circuits, and there's 7 of the local universe circuits, right? So all these, and we've studied both of these before. You can find them in previous videos. So.
Oh, hey, Roger, the paradise circuits are the present circuits of the universal Father, the eternal Son, and the infinite Spirit.
That's right.
And then you have the local universe circuits.
Right, and then you have the local universe circuits. And really there's 4 circuits. There's the personality circuit of the Father, the Spirit circuit of the Son, and the mind circuit of the infinite Spirit. Also, paradise has its own circuit that controls all matter, gravity, things like that.
So that's exactly what you're talking about, a paradise circuit.
That's the paradise circuits, right. Now the other circuits have to do with the local universe, and that includes the adjutant mind spirits and the circuit of the 7th adjutant, or the 7th executive spirit, and there's 7 of these, and you can look those up too under these circuits. So
when you say a paradise circuit, you're not talking about the eternal Isle of Paradise circuit. You're talking about the present circuits of those 3 deities.
No, I'm talking, that includes the Isle of Paradise. Yeah, you can't
Okay.
fall outside the influence of the Isle of Paradise.
So there's 4 total.
There's 4 total. That's
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Okay. Okay. Rodney, would you take this?
Sure. Oh, excuse me. There are 7 stages in the unfoldment of an era of light and life on an evolutionary world. And in this connection, it should be noted that the worlds of the spirit-fused mortals evolve along lines identical with those of the Adjuster Fusion series. These 7 stages of light and life are...
Okay, hold on there, Rodney. I want to mention the spirit-fused mortals. Remember, we talked about before how there's planets that are, all the mortals on there are spirit-fused instead of adjuster-fused. And that's what they're talking about here. So the spirit-fused mortals follow the same identical pathway as we do on our ascension planet, and their planets follow the same exact plan on their stages of light and life. Now let's keep going. Go ahead and read those 2, Rodney, if you would.
J1, the first or planetary stage. 2, the second or system stage. 3, the third or constellation stage. 4, the fourth or local universe stage. 5, the 5th or minor sector stage. 6, the 6th or major sector stage. 7, the seventh or super universe stage.
Now notice here that this is the same pathway that we go for our ascension plan. First we go through a planetary ascension, right, as Morontia beings, and then the system as Morontia being. And then later on the constellation. And lastly, the fourth is the local universe. Now at that point, we go from being Morontia beings to first stage spirits. And then we go on to the minor and major sector and eventually to the seventh super universe. So the planet, as it goes through the stages of light and life, follow the same pathway as humans do on the ascension plan, right? And if you want to know more about this, there's a video on our website, fifthepicalrevelationfellowship.com or the Atlanta Urantia Study Group.org, either one. And there's, at the bottom of the pages is 4 videos, and they're labeled What Really Happens When You Die. And you can listen to those, and it'll go through each one of these stages with you, or all the way through the ascension plan. Okay. Alright. At the conclusion of this narrative, these stages of advancing development are described as they relate to the universe organization. But the planetary values of any stage may be attained by any world quite independent of the development of other worlds or of the planetary levels of universe administration. In other words, every single planet is unique in the universe, and they all go through these stages, but they do it at different periods of time, and some of them are faster and some of them are slower. So there are variations of this, but every planet goes through the same thing. All right. Diane, you take the next one, please?
1. The Morontia Temple. The presence of a Morontia temple at the capital of an inhabited world is a certificate of the admission of such a sphere to the settled ages of light and life. Before the teacher sons leave the world at the conclusion of their terminal mission, they inaugurate this final epic of evolutionary attainment. They preside on that day when the holy temple comes down upon earth. This event, signalizing the dawn of the era of light and life, is always honored by the personal presence of the Paradise Bestowal Son of that planet, who comes to witness this great day. There, in this temple of unparalleled beauty, this bestowal Son of Paradise proclaims a long-time planetary prince as a new planetary sovereign, and invests such a faithful Lenonondak son with new powers and extended authority over planetary affairs. The system sovereign is also present and speaks in confirmation of these pronouncements.
Okay, so normally a planetary sovereign is the planetary prince, right? The planetary sovereign normally comes from the Lenonondak sons. But in our case, our planetary sovereign will end up being Machavincha of Melchizedek. So he is a Melchizedek, a different type of being, right? So we're a little bit different than the average planet on this. But the other interesting thing about this is it says the Morontia temple comes down to earth. In essence, the Morontia temple does not come down from heaven like it says here. What they want to give us the idea, it actually is built on this planet from Morontia materials that's already here, right? The architecture's done on the system capital, and then they bring the plans to the planet, and the mechanical physical controllers and the power supervisors build the Morontia temple from the Morontia materials already on this planet, which means that there's probably Morontia structures on this planet where their beings assigned to this planet are already living, right? So it's just outside our sight range. And it could be superimposed right on regular material buildings and things, so, which is kind
Roger, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there any indication as to the location of our planet's capital?
Well, yeah, they say there's a spiritual pole, Rodney, and there's been speculation that it's probably where the Archangel circuit headquarters is, which is they think is around California and Redwood somewhere. So that is, they call it the spiritual pole or the spiritual center of the it could be there, we're not sure. You know, I mean, there's no way to be sure. It's interesting though, if you think about it, let me just bring this up. A few years ago, somebody invented something called a FLIR, F-L-U-R, I think it is, or F-L-I-R, one of the two. And with a FLIR, it extends the range, and they mentioned something about this, not the FLIR, but the extension of the range of human sight through technology in the future. And really that's kind of happened already, because with a FLIR, people that do ghost hunting and this sort of thing have picked up beings that are outside our range, walking about and doing things like that. And they think they're ghosts, but in reality, I really truly believe they're probably midwayers and angels and beings that are assigned to the planet. But it's interesting how this camera has extended the human range of sight, and that's what they're talking about. They talk about here in this section a little bit. So I find that kind of interesting. All right, let's keep moving. I think, Millie, I think you're next.
Okay. A Morancha temple has three parts. Centermost is the sanctuary of the Paradise Bestowal Sun. On the right is the seat of the former planetary prince, now planetary sovereign. And when present in the temple, this Lananandak sun is visible to the more spiritual individuals of the realm. On the left is the seat of the acting chief of finaliters attached to the planet.
Okay, so the planetary sovereign's there, right? And the Paradise Bestowal Sun will be whom?
Big Jesus.
That will be Jesus.
Christ Michael.
Christ Michael, that's right. That's who will be at the center seat, and on his right will be the planetary prince, who is Machavincha Melchizedek, right? And on his left will be the acting chief of the finaliters, and these finaliters are attached to our planet, are assigned to our planet and helping out doing things here even today on our planet. And the finaliters are eventually what we become, right? So
it's only one finaliter, Roger?
yeah,
The
it's only
chief?
one, the chief of finaliters will be in the Morancha temple. But that's the three seats in the temple itself, right? All right.
This kind of reminds me of the Adam and Eve paper.
Yeah, it really does. All right, Tim, would you take the next one?
The average Morancha temple seats about
Wait a
300,000 spectators.
minute. No, you skipped one there.
You
Oh, I
skipped
skipped one. Okay.
Yeah.
Although the planetary temples have been spoken of as coming down from heaven, in reality, no actual material is transported from the system headquarters. The architecture of each is worked out in miniature on the system capital, and the Morancha Power Supervisors subsequently bring these approved plans to the planet. Here, in association with the Master Physical Controllers, they proceed to build the Morancha Temple according to specifications.
So these are beings that control power and matter and things like that, and they actually build the temple according to the specifications that they brought down from the.
So they have like a little model, Roger? That's what they're talking about?
Yeah, they have a model that they work out on the system capital before they start to build. So they know exactly what they're building. And and this Morancha temple is supposed to be just beyond beautiful. I mean, it's we probably don't even have a concept of how beautiful it will be.
It's kind of like where we learned it, right?
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah. Rodney, would you take the next one?
The average Morancha temple seats about 300,000 spectators. These edifices are not used for worship, play, or for receiving broadcasts. They are devoted to the special ceremonies of the planet, such as communications with the system sovereign or with the Most Highs, special visual revitalization ceremonies designed to reveal the personality presence of spirit beings, and silent cosmic contemplation. The schools of cosmic philosophy here conduct their graduation exercises, and here also do the mortals of the realm receive planetary recognition for achievements of high social service and for other outstanding attainments.
Okay, so it's interesting here they talk about they have special visualization ceremonies designed to reveal personality presence of spirit beings. So if you went as a human being to the Morancha temple, they would allow you to see the spirit beings that are there. It's also the Morancha temple and satellites of the Morancha temple is also where adjuster fusion happens later on after a planet is in light and life. Before that, normally if you're going to fuse with your adjusters, it's normally done on the outside because of the flash that happens and the consummation of the body in fire at the moment you fuse with your adjuster. So it's on translation. So this is kind of interesting.
Is that the one you're talking about in the atmosphere?
Yes, that's the one.
So we could be looking up outside and we would see a flash of fire.
You would see a
and
flash.
That's the indication that this individual has fused with his adjuster and has moved on to the mansion worlds to start his ascendant career?
That's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly right. And it's interesting that the attending personalities, like the guardian angels, actually raise you up from the planet to keep your loved one safe, during this flash. Okay. Such a Morancha temple also serves as a place of assembly for witnessing the translation of living mortals to the Morancha existence. It is because of the translation temple is composed of Morancha material that it is not destroyed by the blazing glory of the consuming fire which so completely obliterates the physical bodies of those mortals who therein experience final fusion with their divine adjusters. On a large world, these departure flares are almost continuous. And as the number of translations increases, subsidiary Morancha life shrines are provided in different areas of the planet. Not long since, I sojourned on a world in the far north whereon 25 Morancha shrines were functioning. So as more and more people reach the point of adjuster fusion in the future, more and more of these temples or shrines are created so that the humans can go to them, invite their family. They're surrounded by celestial beings to protect their family, and they can witness their family go through the fusion flash. So.
Hey Roger, I don't understand what the word translation means.
Well, when they talk about translation, they use translation instead of dying. Okay? There's two ways to leave the planet. You can die, just naturally die a physical death, or you can be translated. And the translation takes a normal human being and consumes him in fire during a fusion process with the adjuster. So they no longer need the body, so the body's consumed in fire. So you wouldn't feel anything, because soon as you translate, you become you go from being a human to a Morancha being, and you don't conscientize or you don't wake up until your adjuster has transported you to the mansion worlds. So
as soon as these individuals get that Morancha body, there's the departure flares that indicate that they have ascended?
They have ascended, that's right. As soon as the flare happens, it indicates that the body is no longer used, so they have translated from a human to a Morancha form.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Roger, I can't remember. Did Jesus fuse with his adjuster?
No, he could not.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, he was already a son of God. So being a son of God, he was always already part of the deity of God.
All right, okay.
Okay, so he could not have an adjuster and could not fuse with his adjuster. Right?
And his adjuster actually left him in the mortal life in the flesh, correct?
That's correct. And his adjuster is still on this planet. He's the chief of the adjusters on this planet. Right?
But what does that indicate when the adjuster does leave the human being? That you're a high spiritual person? A godlike person?
No, the adjuster does not ever leave you. The adjuster transports you to the mansion world where there's a Morancha body waiting on you.
But I don't understand, then how did Jesus' adjuster leave him when they're not supposed to leave?
Oh, because he's a son of God. He did not.
Okay.
See, Jesus was the exception. Jesus, many people don't realize this, but Jesus was not resurrected. Jesus resurrected himself. There's a big difference, you know. Jesus could resurrect someone from the dead because why? Because he was the Son of God. He was the creator of this local universe, right? So people think that another power or another form of life resurrected Jesus, and that is not the case. Jesus resurrected himself, and only creator sons are able to do this, right? And that's the mystery of the resurrection. It really is the fact that Jesus or Michael could resurrect himself from a physical being to a Morancha form and eventually go back to the being he was. Right?
Do you remember what age Jesus was when his adjuster left him?
Not off the top of my head. I think it was around 29, though, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Diane, would you take the next one?
On pre-settled worlds, planets without Morancha temples, these fusion flashes many times occur in the planetary atmosphere, where the material body of a translation candidate is elevated by the midware creatures and the physical controllers.
So they're lifted around, right? Alright. Okay, Millie, would you take the next one? Death in translation?
Number 2, death in translation. Natural physical death is not a mortal inevitability.
Right.
The majority of advanced evolutionary beings, citizens on worlds existing in the final era of light and life, do not die. They are translated directly from the life in the flesh to the Morancha existence.
So there you go. You don't have to die. You can translate from your living being, right? And become a Morancha being. Tim, would you take the next one?
This experience of translation from the material life to the Morancha state, fusion of the immortal soul with the indwelling adjuster, increases in frequency, commensurate with the commensurate with the evolutionary process of the planet. At first, only a few mortals in each age attain translation levels of spiritual progress. But with the onset of the successive ages of the teacher sons, more and more adjuster fusions occur because the termination of the lengthening lives of these progressing mortals. And by the time of the terminal mission of the teacher sons, approximately 1/4 of these superb mortals are exempt from natural death.
Now y'all remember, planets where they have reached the age of life and light, on average, these planets have extended the lifespan of human beings because of getting rid of a lot of the disease and things like that. So many times, some of these planets, these humans may be up to like 500 years old. So they have lots of time to learn their lessons on this planet and prepare themselves for this adjuster fusion, right? So that helps out the amount of people that actually are translated. But remember, they do have a longer life than we do on this planet. But that does not give us an excuse that we still confuse with our adjuster in this lifetime, even though it's short.
But hey, Roger, when they talk about translation that we just read, you know, when they go up in flares, aren't those individuals from other planets?
Yeah, they're talking about individuals from other planets, but they're also talking about us, that we can do the same thing, right?
Okay, so we've already died, and we've reached the mansion worlds, and then there's a progressive step we have to take.
What after we, yeah, if we die and we reach the mansion worlds, we do fuse with our adjusters, but it's a different experience after you have a Morontia body, Tim.
Okay.
It's not the same as this, because the only life we have where we have this basic physical body is this one, right? Every life after this, or every Morontia body we have after this, is a totally different form, and fusing with your adjuster in a different form would be totally different. You wouldn't have the translation flash like you would here, right? Because there would be no body to consume.
Could there be anybody on this planet that has translated
Oh sure.
recently, since Jesus?
Oh sure, Millie. I'm sure there are. We don't hear about them because it's not that common a thing. And probably those who translate during our lifetime and things like that do it in secrecy, or do it because it's a personal thing, right? It's not something they would advertise because they don't feel like probably that people would understand. You know, unless you've read the Urantia book, you'd have no idea what they were talking about, right?
So it's kind of like saying, Roger, that when we get up to the Morontia worlds, there's step after step, and eventually our Morontia bodies are changing. We get a new body, and there's 490,
Yeah.
and then eventually, is it always a fusion flash? Or does the body also just changes on its own, correct?
The body probably changes on its own, Tim, because it's never mentioned. The fusion flash is not mentioned after life on the flesh. So I would assume it's just a transition from the Morontia body to a fusion with the adjuster then. So.
Because I thought we were escorted or somehow flown to other planets.
Oh,
Like those spheres.
Oh, we will be, as Morontia beings.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that does the fusion flash only happen once, or is it every time? You see what I'm kind of saying?
No, it only happens once to an individual, and then after you fuse with your adjuster, your whole being changes. Right?
Okay.
Because you become part of the deity of God also.
Right, so you're talking about fusion with the adjuster, which usually happens on Mansion World number 6.
Yeah.
Once that happens, there's no more fusion flashes. The
No.
body just changes.
The body just changes. That's correct.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see who's up. I think Rodney is.
I think you're right. Further along the era of light and life, the midway creatures, or their associates, sense the approaching status of probable soul adjuster union and signify this to the Destiny Guardians, who in turn communicate these matters to the Finaliter group, under whose jurisdiction this mortal may be functioning. Then there is issued the summons of the planetary sovereign for such a mortal to resign all planetary duties, bid farewell to the world of his origin, and repair to the inner temple of the planetary sovereign, there to await Morontia transit. The translation flash from the material domain of evolution to the Morontia level of pre-spirit progression.
So basically the midway creatures sense that you're approaching this time of fusion adjustment, right? So they tell your guardian angel or your destiny guardian that this is about to happen, and then the Destiny Guardian communicates this to basically you and the Sovereign, and the planetary Sovereign basically issues a summons for you to come to the temple and prepare yourself for the flash. Now that point, you can tell your friends and family, and they can accompany you to the Morontia temple and witness you going through the flash. Now, since we are not in the era of light and life, we don't have a temple to be summoned to, do we? So if we were going to fuse with our adjuster, we would probably be communicated this either by the midway creatures or your guardian angel directly, that you are, preparing to fuse, so you could prepare yourself for the fusion. So it's not something that just happens unexpectedly. You know that it's fixing to happen.
So hey Roger, you only fuse once with your adjuster?
You only fuse once with your adjuster.
And this is probably on Mansion World number 6, correct?
Well, usually by Mansion World number 5 to 6, most beings fuse. And those who do not usually fuse by the time they get to the system capital, if they don't on the 7 Mansion Worlds. So.
I have a question. This flash is when a mortal is transitioned.
That's right.
Translated. Is there a flash when a Morontia fuses?
It's not mentioned, Millie, that there is, so we can assume there may not be, because the flash is only to consume the human body.
Right. So I can't see that there would be one when a Morontia body fuses.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any need for one on a Morontia body, because even though you fuse, you still have a Morontia body. Right.
Got it. Okay. That clears it up for me. We keep talking about the flash, the flash, the flash.
Yeah.
And it only happens to a physical body.
That's right. That's right. And the other thing is, if you die and go on to the Dimensional Worlds and then you fuse, you never experience the flash. Right?
Good. Okay. Got it. Yes.
So this is happening on 5 or 6, and then you skip 7 and go to the Morontia temple?
I don't think you skip anything.
No, this can happen on Mansion World 5 or 6, but the translation does not happen on 5 or 6, though, Tim. That only happens on your original planet.
Okay, this is basically after you fused and you're going further. You're in a Morontia body, and there's that step up.
That's right. It's a step up. That's right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. I don't think there's anything else on that we need to cover. Okay, I believe I'm up again. When the family, friends, and working group of such a fusion candidate have foregathered in the Morontia temple, they are distributed around the central stage wherein the fusion candidates are resting. In other words, they're probably laying down. Meantime, freely conversing with their assembled friends. A circle of intervening celestial personalities is arranged to protect the material mortals from the action of the energies manifest of the instant of the life flash, which delivers the ascension candidate from the bonds of material flesh, thereby doing for the evolutionary mortal everything that natural death does for those who are thereby delivered from the flesh. So, the friends and family are surrounding these candidates in the Morontia temple, and between them and the candidate is a group of celestial beings surrounding the candidate. Okay? And these celestial beings are there to protect the friends and family from the grand energy from the flash. Okay? So they won't be harmed. So.
Hey Roger, where exactly are these entities going after the fusion flash?
They go directly to the Mansion World. The Mansion World they're assigned that they would normally be advanced to. That's what happens. So, okay. Now remember, on planets that are in advanced stages in light and life, many of these beings that fuse with their adjusters skip over all 7 of the Mansion Worlds, because they've already learned all the lessons of all 7 Mansion Worlds while they were still alive. Okay? So that can happen. Now they still have to go back and teach on each one of those worlds they skipped over, but they are of advanced status. They become citizens of the local unit of the system. All right, Diane, would you take the next one?
Okay. Many fusion candidates may be assembled in the spacious temple at the same time. And what a beautiful occasion when mortals thus foregather to witness the ascension of their loved ones in spiritual flames. And what a contrast to those earlier ages when mortals must commit their dead to the embrace of the terrestrial elements. The scenes of weeping and wailing characteristic of earlier epics of human evolution are now replaced by the ecstatic joy and this sublimest enthusiasm as these God-knowing mortals bid their loved ones a transient farewell as they are removed from their material associations by the spiritual fires of consuming grandeur and ascending glory. On worlds settled in light and life, funerals are occasions of supreme joy, profound satisfaction, and inexpressible hope.
So there's no sadness about this that goes on. This is like a celebration because these people are moving on to the next level, right?
So these are individuals that are really from a more advanced planet than ours.
Yeah.
Okay, now I understand. See, I'm starting here on Urantia,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, okay, I don't understand now. I did. Okay,
Well,
thank
the
you.
whole point is, Tim, that we're going to get there ourselves eventually
Exactly, right.
on this planet. Now, we probably won't be alive to see that happen, but that this is the future. That's why this is a revelation. This is a revelation for all the...
A planet that has settled in light and life, correct?
That's right. That's right. Okay. Millie, would you take the next one?
Yes, the souls of the progressing mortals are increasingly filled with faith, hope, and assurance. The spirit permeating those gathered around the translation shrine resembles that of joyous friends and relatives who might assemble at a graduation exercise for one of their group, or who might come together to witness the conferring of some great honor upon one of their number. And it would be decidedly helpful if less advanced mortals could only learn to view natural death with something of this same cheerfulness and lightheartedness.
All right, and that's what they're trying to teach us here is, we should be grateful when our loved ones go on because we know they're going on to the mansion worlds to a better life, a better existence. So it really should not be a sad, the reason people mourn and they're sad is because of their loss, not the loss of the one that's leaving, right?
Exactly.
Because the one that's leaving is going on to a much better existence and they'll be reunited with all their family and friends, and so that's really something for them to look forward to. But to us, it's a loss because we love them and we're going to miss them until we see them again on the mansion world. So it's kind of hard to explain that to someone if you don't have faith, right? Because this is all based on faith. All right, Tim, would you take the next one?
When you say the word faith, are you talking about assurance?
Assurance of survival, really. When you think about it, the plan of Jesus was to teach us the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, right? And during Jesus' time, the biggest fear was dying, non-existence. So the big thing that Jesus taught the people of his day was the fact that they could have eternal life. They don't die, they go on. And to us, that should be an assumed thing. We should already realize that. But many people go through this life without that faith that they do survive and they will go on. So death to them is something to be greatly feared, right?
So you could call faith the assurance and conviction
Assurance
versus...
the
How can we
assurance of
compare
survival.
How can we compare faith to belief?
Well, the difference between saying you believe something and you have faith is this. When you have faith in something, faith is non-shakable. Okay? So faith is like You assume something to the point of where no one could ever convince you otherwise, right?
Well said, yeah.
Where belief
Kind of like the quote in the Bible where it says, faith is the substance of things unseen
unseen.
or hoped for.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's why they call us agandanters when we leave this planet, because we believe without seeing. Okay? And that's a big thing. It really is. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, mortal observers can see nothing of their translated associates subsequent to the fusion flash. Such translated souls proceed by adjuster transit direct to the resurrection hall of the appropriate Morancha training world. These transactions concerned with the translation of living human beings to the Morancha world are supervised by an archangel who was assigned to such a world on the day when it was first settled in light and life.
Okay. An important point on this paragraph needs to be brought out, and that is this. The mortal observers do not see their associates or their loved ones after the flash, right? Because they're automatically already transported to the mansion worlds, okay? Another interesting point about this is this. Upon death, you are not allowed to be consciousized until you awaken on the mansion world. So what does that tell us? That tells us there is no such thing as what? Ghost. Right? Ghosts do not exist. The things we think are ghosts are either midwayers, angels, beings such as that. Ghosts do not exist of human beings because you're not allowed to hang out on the planet or come back for a full millennium after you die on this planet. You're automatically transported to the mansion worlds, or you're sound asleep until the resurrection, and then even then you are not allowed to communicate with your loved ones. Okay? The way we are sure about this, and we know this, was one of the ways that the Urantia book came into being was a study of William Sadler along with Thurman and actually Houdini, who were trying to communicate with their dead relatives, okay? And they were not able to do this. So it's kind of interesting how things go.
Who's Thurman?
Thurman was a friend of Houdini's, and he was also a friend of William Sadler's, and they would go around and disprove mediums and spiritualists who were doing seances and things like
I
that.
thought it was his wife too, Lena.
Yeah, she did the same thing. She did the same thing.
So it was 3 individuals that were going around debunking these
Yeah,
so-called
along with
spirits.
Houdini. Houdini did this his whole life. You know, he was a master at figuring out how people were fooling each other. You know, so anyway,
Yeah, that was a good movie.
yeah,
That latest one.
yeah,
That's what I'm going to name my cat, Houdini.
Houdini. All right, Rodney, I think you're up.
Okay, by the time a world attains the 4th stage of light and life, more than half the mortals leave the planet by translation from among the living. Such diminishment of death continues on and on. But I know of no system whose inhabited worlds, even though long settled in light and life, are entirely free from natural death as a technique of escape from the bonds of flesh. And until such a high state of planetary evolution is uniformly attained, the Morancha training worlds of the local universe must continue in service as educational and cultural spheres for the evolving Morancha progressors. The elimination of death is theoretically possible, but it has not yet occurred. According to my observation, perhaps such a status may be attained during the faraway stretches of the succeeding epochs of the seventh stage of settled planetary life.
So there's no planets in the universe that's 100% translating, right? And they're saying here in theory it could get that way, but it'll be far, far in the future when all planets and all 7 super universes are settled in light and life. So that is eons and eons and eons away before that will happen.
And they're just talking about our universe.
That's right. They're talking about our universe.
Could happen on a different universe, who knows?
Well, no, he's talking about anywhere in all 7 of the super universes. 7,
Oh, okay.
yeah, all 7 super universes. There's no planets that all beings on those planets are translating. Death is still the #1 way to leave the planet. So, all right. The translated souls of the flowering ages of the settled spheres do not pass through the mansion worlds. Neither do they sojourn as students on the Morancha world of the 7 system or constellation. They do not pass through any of the earlier phases of Morancha life. They are only ascending mortals who so nearly escape the Morancha transition from material existence to semi-spirit status. The initial experience of such sun-seas mortals in the ascension career is in the services of the progression worlds of the universe headquarters. And from these study worlds of Salvington, they go back as teachers to the very worlds they passed by, subsequently going on inward to paradise by the established route of mortal ascension. So nobody gets away with skipping through anything because there's experiences that you need to learn on each of these worlds.
Hey Roger, there's 3 words. Could you help me
Yes.
translate them?
Yeah.
The word sun sees is the first one.
Sun-seas mortal basically is someone who the Son of God has called into service outside the physical body. Okay? So and the Son of God can do that. Only the Son of God can do that.
And number 2 is semi-spirit.
Semi-spirit are basically the stages of our spiritual progression. First, we're first stage spirit, second stage spirit, third stage spirit. And what they're talking about is when you go from Morancha to the first stage spirit, that's the in-between stage, and that's what you would call a semi-spirit. In other words, those last areas of Morancha beings before you become that first stage spirit are semi-spirit. In other words, they're partial. They've educated themselves to the point where it's hard to call them Morancha beings anymore because they're on the cusp of becoming spirits. Right.
And number 1 is the flowering age.
Oh, they're talking about the flowering age as an age where a large percentage of the spheres are settled in light and life. That's basically what.
Okay, thank you so much for your help.
Sure.
That was excellent.
All right. Let's keep going here. Diane, I think you're up next.
Could you but visit a planet in an advanced stage of development, you would quickly grasp the reasons for providing for the differential reception of ascending mortals on the mansion and higher Morancha worlds. You would readily understand that beings passing on from such highly evolved spheres are prepared to resume their paradise ascent far in advance of the average mortal arriving from a disordered and backwards world like Urantia.
They really stuck it to us that time, didn't they? Stuck the knife in us. So.
They have to stick it to us every time.
That's right. That's right. So we live on a disordered and backward world. So we're not even close yet, right?
No matter for what level of planetary attainment human beings may ascend to the mortal Morancha worlds, the 7 mansion spheres afford them ample opportunity to gain in experience as teacher students all of everything which they failed to pass through because of the advanced status of their native planets.
So they're talking about these beings that skip over the mansion worlds, right? They have the opportunity to learn these things as teacher students also. The universe, Tim, would you take the next one?
The universe is unfailing in the application of these equalizing techniques designed to ensure that no ascender shall be deprived of aught which is essential to his ascension experience.
Do y'all understand what they're saying here? That every being is given every opportunity to personally experience the entire gamut of the ascension plan, right? So you don't skip over anything because you would lose the experience of going through that personally. So nothing is held back from you. You're given the opportunity to do everything that is worthwhile as you ascend to God, right? Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Yes, 3. The Golden Ages. During this age of light and life, the world increasingly prospers under the fatherly rule of the planetary sovereign. By this time, the worlds are progressing under the momentum of one language, one religion, and, on normal spheres, one race. But this age is not perfect. These worlds still have well-appointed hospitals, homes for the care of the sick. There still remain the problems of caring for accidental injuries and the inescapable infirmities attendant upon the decrepitude of old age and the disorders of senility. Disease has not been entirely vanquished. Neither have the earth animals been subdued in perfection. But such worlds are like paradise in comparison with the early times of primitive man during the pre-planetary Prince Age. You would instinctively describe such a realm. Could you be suddenly transported to a planet in this stage of development as heaven on earth?
So this is not a perfect world, even as it advances, but compared to what we live in today and what comes before us, it would be considered like a paradise to us because of most of the major problems have been solved.
Hey, Roger,
Yeah.
they mentioned the word one race. Are we referring to color?
Yes. Well, we're talking not only color, but ethnic associations too, Tim.
What does that mean?
Well, because, for instance, if you see somebody that's a Christian or a Jew, right? Jews are of the white race, right? Christians are of the white race. It's a religious preference, right? But they're considered a different race, and that's what they're talking about there. But they're also talking about color. We know that eventually all planets will end up being one race. And when I say that is there'll be an amalgamation of all the colors back to one color eventually. Okay, it might take thousands and thousands and thousands of years, but as different colored races intermix and intermarry more and more and more, eventually we'll all be of the same hue. Okay? In the same way with races. Eventually we'll all come to believe in one basic religion over time.
But
right?
they don't specify, like the blue race or the violet race or the yellow.
No. They do tell us in the book that it'll be kind of a bronze, olive tinted race once we've all amalgamated and mixed together again. Right?
When you say olive, it's black?
Black, white, red, yellow, all the races. Once we've all intermarried and intermixed again, we'll end up being sort of an olive hue, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And it's going to happen, whether you believe it or not. Sooner or later, it happens. You know, that's
In about
why.
6 million years.
Yeah, really, it might take.
Well,
that
it didn't take that long to lose the obviously green and violet races.
That's right. They're
gone.
amalgamated, yeah.
Or the orange.
Yeah,
It was green and orange, correct?
right. And I am lost on who's to read next. Who just read?
I
It's red.
Huh?
did.
Oh, okay. So I'm up. Human government in the conduct of material affairs continued to function throughout this age of relative progress and perfection. The public activities of a world in the first stage of light and life, which I recently visited, were financed by the tithing technique. Every adult worker and all able-bodied citizens worked at something, paid 10% of his income or increase to the public treasury, and it was dispersed as follows.
Hey, Roger, I had a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you think about all these Christians today tithing to their churches? It's a commandment given in the Holy Bible.
Yes.
What's your opinion?
Well, one thing's for sure, you cannot run a church without tithing. I mean, you have to have finances to run a church. Even our group as a group, we have to have finances to make this happen. And most of it comes from me and Diane, but you know, we get donations through the internet, and they're small, very small donations, but every little bit helps finance the expense of the website and keeping the websites going and the Vimeo accounts, and all these things cost things, right?
So it's pretty much to keep the lights on and pay the electricity bill, but these individuals do it because it's a strict commandment.
Yes, they do, and that's
They expect the elders of the church to use the money responsibly. They don't expect them to buy private jets and
That's right.
air condition the doghouse.
plus
But
the fact
where I'm getting at in our modern world, do you feel that should change? It should be because you want to keep the lights on, not because it's a strict commandment, correct?
I think many things should change, including the financing of the sick, the poor, the elderly. All this should be included in this tithe.
Absolutely.
You know, not just the support of the church. The support of the church is very important, but it's the church's responsibility to make sure that the sick and the weak and the helpless and the starving are fed and that sort of thing. And the only way they can do that is to have the financial backing to do it, right? So there's a mixing, there's no way to get around this, but eventually on these planets of light and life, there's a mixing of the religious responsibility and the social responsibility, right? Because we're socially responsible to take care of the ailing and the sick and the elderly and that sort of thing, and the insane, right? But we're also responsible to take care of our churches and things like that so that we can bring enlightenment to the future generations. And if there's not churches and there's not people like us teaching this stuff, then there's not enlightenment, and so we go backwards. And that's the importance of the tithing. It really is. You know, when you see these preachers stand up in their pulpits and all they talk about is money, 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 that's incorrect also, right? What should happen is tithing should be a internal need to support what you believe is true and right? And that's just basically the teachings of the past telling us 10% of what we make should go back into supporting God, our brothers and sisters, right? The fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. It comes back to that once again, right?
If the churches would just recognize that they're responsible for the brotherhood of man.
That's exactly right, Millie.
I've heard pastors say that, if you don't tithe, you're going to be under a financial curse. So it's really getting out of this primitive state of thinking and really getting into the heart of, I want to do this because I want to keep the lights on. It's going to be used to help other people, like the poor, or build an orphanage for people. That's why I tithe.
Ask your church, what are you doing with my money?
Yeah. Well, you'll notice I don't mention anything. You know, we have expenses come up about once a year for our keeping our meetings going, and I usually just mention it once in a meeting once a year because I'm not going to harp on it. If people do not feel the urge to spread the Urantia book, then they should not be sending us any support. You know, but I guarantee you, if you support the Urantia book. I personally support the foundation every month, and every month they send me a very nice thank you letter for doing that because they realize that if we do not support organizations like that, then the books are not going to get out there to human beings, right? So if somebody don't do it, it won't get done. That's
So you
the
only
thing.
support one
I support both.
organization, the foundation, not the fellowship?
I support both of them.
Wonderful.
Yeah, wholeheartedly, you know, and if people do not want to support one and support the other, that's fine too, because you're still supporting spreading the word of the Urantia book, right? And that's what we're doing here. That's what. And you'll notice on our website, I have links to support all the organizations down there, and that's why there's links for each one. So. And I urge people to do that. I think it's a good thing. You know, it's not going to kill anyone to send $1 a day to an organization which is spreading the Word of God and enlightenment to the masses. It needs to be done. You know, so.
Well, I just wanted to give our brothers and sisters out there the enlightenment of an understanding that says, hey, you're not going to be under a financial curse if you don't tithe.
You won't be.
You have to understand and know
if you
the
can't
universal
afford to-
Father, the Father of lights, the giver of life.
Now, if you can't afford to give money, you can give your time, your effort to spread the word and tell other people. There's a lot of ways to support, even if you have no money whatsoever. You know.
Because a lot of organizations are telling these people, hey, you're under God's curse because you're not tithing.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I don't
either.
There
don't
is no
believe-
curse.
there is no
God
God's
loves you.
curse.
God does not curse you.
That's exactly right. You know.
That's
If
correct.
they would just understand the only emotion that God has is love.
Yes.
He's not vengeance. He's not retribution. He's not cursing anybody. The only emotion that God has is love.
All these
That's-
emotions
that's it.
outside of love are human emotions, not God emotions. Right?
That's why some of the other planets look at us and say, wow, what are they doing? Because they don't have the emotions that we have.
Yeah.
They have other emotions maybe, but they don't experience all the things that we experience. We're a very unique planet.
Yeah, we are. Okay, let's keep going. Diane, I think you're next.
You know, I've lost my place.
Oh, it's 3%. It's breaking down.
Okay, all right. 3% was expended in the promotion of truth, science, education, and philosophy. 2, 3% was devoted to beauty, play, social leisure, and art. 3% was dedicated to goodness, social service, altruism, and religion. 4, 1% was assigned to the insurance reserves against the risk of incapacity for labor resultant from accident, disease, old age, or unpreventable disasters.
That's a perfect example of a breakdown of how the 10% should be used.
Yeah, it's really very good.
Yeah. Okay.
Huh.
Billy, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. The natural resources of this planet were administered as social possessions, community property. Interesting.
In other words, the natural resources are not owned by anybody to make money off of. You see that? They're owned as community property and social possessions, and they should be administered as such.
So natural, those could be trees or land or
Oil,
Oil, gold, anything that comes from the planet.
Gold, silver, copper, water.
Yeah, water, air, all these things are natural resources of the planet. We do not own these. And when we start claiming those and put money on them and charging for those, that's when we start to go wrong.
Hey Roger,
Right.
can you imagine a breathing tax? Have you paid your breathing tax today, Roger?
Yeah, really. That'll
Now-
be next. Somebody will figure out how to do it.
Thankfully, we don't live in China.
Me.
There's, there's nothing. There's only a partial bit of air to breathe.
That's right.
It's so polluted.
That's
And
right.
we're not far behind.
Yeah. Okay, Millie, would you take this one too? Because it's that last one.
Okay, on this world, the highest honor conferred upon a citizen was the Order of Supreme Service, being the only degree of recognition ever to be granted in the Morancha Temple. This recognition was bestowed upon those who had long distinguished themselves in some phase of super-material discovery or planetary social service.
Serving men, right? Serving each other, right? That's what it's all about. Tim, would you take the next one?
The majority of social and administrative posts were held jointly by men and women. Most of the teaching was alone, done jointly. Likewise, all judicial trusts were discharged by similar associated couples. What do they mean by the word judicial?
Judicial.
Oh, judicial.
Judicial, right. Listen, this is a Windows 10 thing. It just popped up and said it's got an automatic restart. So if I pop off, it's not intentionally, y'all. So you can thank Windows 10 for that. You can see I'm really happy with Windows 10 right now. Anyway, we'll keep going until it tries to kick me off again, I guess.
So the word judicial, Roger, that's kind of like a court thing?
It's a court thing, yeah. It's a judgment, right? All judicial trusts. In other words, somebody has to be the judge and make decisions, right? That's what they're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
And notice here it also said all social and administrative posts were held jointly by men and women. We come back to the equality thing again. You know, throughout the Urantia book over and over and over again, it teaches us that men and women are equal, right?
Because in the East, they see that a lot differently.
They do. They
The
do.
Muslims will be surprised when they
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah. All right. Rodney.
The reason their countries are in such distress is because they're only using half their workforce.
That's right. That's right.
My personal opinion.
Okay, Rodney, would you take the next one?
All right. On these superb worlds, the childbearing period is not greatly prolonged. It is not best for too many years to intervene between the ages of the family of children. When close together in age, children are able to contribute much more to their mutual training. And on these worlds, they are magnificently trained by the competitive systems of keen striving in the advanced domains and divisions of diverse achievement in the mastery of truth, beauty, and goodness. Never fear but that even such glorified spheres present plenty of evil, real and potential, which is stimulative of the choosing between truth and error, good and evil, sin and righteousness.
So even on a more perfect world, that these children, as they grow up, have a opportunity to choose between good and evil, right? Truth and error, sin and righteousness, right? This happens even in a more perfected society. And these things are necessary for beings growing up to choose that which is righteous, right?
Hey, Roger.
Yeah.
What does the word righteousness mean? Because when I hear that word, I think of Buddha. You know, like right speech, right view. What does righteousness mean?
Well, to me, it is a automatically choosing of the will of God. That's what I think of righteousness, always. And
But doesn't it have to do with your contact too? Behavior?
yes,
conduct?
it does, but even in that, you have to make a choice between what is selfish and what is not. And that which is not is choosing the will of God, right?
Okay.
Because it's selfishness that causes us to do most things that are evil, really. Because we want something for ourselves rather than giving to our brothers and sisters, right? All right. Who's up here?
I just read, so I think it's you.
Oh, okay. Nevertheless, there's certain inevitable penalty attached to mortal existence on such advanced evolutionary planets. When a settled world progresses beyond the third stage of light and life, all ascenders are destined before attaining the minor sector to receive some sort of transient assignment on a planet passing through the earlier stages of evolution. Did y'all get that?
Yuck.
So, if you don't come from a planet like ours, that's more barbaric, you have to go back and serve before you go on to the minor sector on a planet like that, so you can gain the experience of that, what happens on those types of spheres.
So how, I don't understand, how that's a mortal that's on the mansion world. It comes to a planet like ours.
Well, they would have to come and observe, Rodney. When
To observe.
Yeah, it talks about in the Urantia book about student visitors.
Right?
That's what they're doing. They're coming and watching us and see how we react to certain situations.
We're in spirit form.
Yeah, in spirit form. So we wouldn't even know they were there, right? But they may be assigned to an individual or a group of individuals to watch them all the way through their life so that they can gain the experience of what happens as a barbarian on a planet like this.
Exactly, because when you think about it, their world truly isn't as bad as ours. So
Yeah.
they're gaining experience about what evil, sin, and iniquity are based on our experience.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah. Diane, would you take the next one?
Each of these successive ages represents advancing achievements in all phases of planetary attainment. In the initial age of light, the revelation of truth was enlarged to embrace the workings of the universe of universes, while the deity study of the second age is the attempt to master the protein concept of the nature, mission, ministry, associations, origin, and destiny of the Creator's sons, the first level of God, the sevenfold.
So these experiences basically teach us how to go up the ladder of the deity, right? Starting with the Creator Son as the first level, the God, the sevenfold. And eventually, as we go up through the different parts of the universe and stuff on the ascension plan, we get the taste of each and every section and age, right? And it's kind of interesting the way they do it. Millie, would you take the next one, please?
A planet the size of Urantia, when fairly well settled, would have about 100 sub-administrative centers. These coordinate centers would be...
Subordinate.
What?
Subordinate?
Subordinate.
These subordinate centers would be presided over by one of the following groups of qualified administrators.
Okay, now y'all keep in mind, if we would have had an Adam and Eve that finished their mission, they would still be on this planet. So there would be these basically satellite centers like the Garden of Eden all over this planet to teach us, right? And this is what they're talking about here. As the planets settle and light and life, there would be satellite administrative centers to help people along. And this
Roger, we would still have Dalmatia too.
we would still have Dalmatia. We would have the Garden of both the Garden of Eden and the original place of Calagasta, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Tim, would you read the next one? It's all 7 of these.
Number 1. Young material sons and daughters brought from the system headquarters to act as assistants
Oops.
to the ruling Adam and Eve. 2. The progeny of the semi-mortal staff of the planetary prince, who were procreated on certain worlds for this and other similar responsibilities. 3. The direct planetary progeny of Adam and Eve. 4. Materialized and humanized midway creatures. 5. Mortals of adjuster fusion status, who upon their own petition are temporarily exempt from translation by the order of the personalized adjuster of the universe. Chieftainship.
Chieftainship.
chieftainship in order that they may continue on the planet in certain important administrative posts. 6. Special trained mortals of the planetary schools of administration who have also received the order of supreme service of the Morontia Temple. 7. Certain elective commissions of 3 properly qualified citizens who are sometimes chosen by the citizenry by direction of the planetary sovereign in accordance with their special ability to accomplish some definite task which is needful in that particular planetary sector.
Now notice in many of these, it has to do with Adam and Eve and their progeny. You see that? And on our planet, all of Adam and Eve's direct descending sons and daughters were taken what? Were taken up to the system headquarters, right? During the fault of Adam and Eve. But they are being held by the Most Highs, and eventually these sons and daughters of Adam and Eve will do what? They'll come back to Urantia. And they will assume these duties in these sub-centers to help us along, right? When this will happen, we have no idea, okay? But that will eventually happen, because this is what happens on all of the planets, right? So eventually we will have the sons and daughters of Adam and Eve to come and teach those who remain on this planet into the future, right? All right. Rodney, would you take the next one?
Okay. The great handicap confronting Urantia in the matter of attaining the high planetary destiny of light and life is embraced in the problems of disease, degeneracy, war, multicolored races, and multilingualism.
Okay, so because we have so many races, we have so many tongues, we have a problem communicating with each other, we still support war, and we still have disease and degeneracy in this planet. So these are the things that are keeping us from progressing as a planet, right? And these things all will have to be addressed sooner or later, okay? No evolutionary world can hope to progress beyond the first stage of settledness in life until it has achieved one language, one religion, and one philosophy. Being of one race greatly facilitates such achievement, but the many peoples of Urantia do not preclude the attainment of higher stages. Okay?
Did you want to stop there, Roger? It's going on 7:42, or did you want to continue?
Yeah, let's stop here, and then next time we'll take up in administrative readjustments. This is a long paper. It may take us 3 times to get through it. So let's stop here, and we'll continue from this section next time. And thank the Lord we didn't have any technical issues tonight, right?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, let's say a little prayer and we'll close for tonight. Millie, would you like to close for us tonight?
Yes. I have a lot to be thankful for tonight, Lord, and I thank you for this time with this group to settle me down and show me the way and teach me a little bit more. We are grateful. We're grateful for this book. We're grateful for this revelation. We're grateful for this time together. Thank you. We ask this. We say this in Jesus' name. Christ Michael. Amen.
Amen. And at home, thank you for joining us. Please come see us again.
I had a really ratty day.